All right, welcome back. I'm going to talk about release .09. A little bit late. I was away at Florida Mega Mini, meeting a bunch of people. That was great. But let's get back to work here. There's a lot of stuff going on in '09. I don't think there's too many big changes here, but we'll go through each one. But first of all, let me just point out three things that we know are issues with '09. So keep aware of these ones. First of all, if you export a house video in '09, it seems to crash. I believe that has been addressed. So if you know how to get to the nightlies, you can grab that. Xscheduler crashes in '09 and a bunch of releases prior. It was just brought to our attention this past week. So if you need Xscheduler, you're going to have to grab an older version. We'll figure that one out. We think we know what's causing that. Hopefully that'll get addressed in the next day or two. Moving ahead, there's a couple of little tweaks that have been done in '09 nightly that we found in '09. I'll address that when I quickly go over the '09 features. So let's start here. Here is the README from the release, and we're just going to blast through them and see what we can find. Okay, a simple bug fix. Thank you, Scott. In value curves, I think I can quickly demo this. If I say create a new sequence, and in any value curve, I don't think it really matters which one I choose. It didn't allow you to say 180.0. It had a maximum of 5 characters. So it would take 180, of course, but that extra fifth character, it would have screamed at you and said, nope, can't do it. So that was fixed. The total tools tip here, something I got for you in the layout. Cancel this, go to the layout. There was an issue where the tools tip wouldn't show the correct total if it involves submodels. So this little thing here, somebody mentioned this on Facebook, the person who originally coded this. Thank you very much. This is a really cool way to find out how many pixels are in your show. Based on, of course, you have an everything group, then everything on the right-hand side has got to be yellow for it to be in the everything group. But there's a quick way to tell how many pixels you have in your group. Before, if there was a submodel, I don't know if I've got something with submodels here. It must be something, I guess, with a submodel. Anyway, if you had a group that had submodels, it treated those as 0, so that gave you an invalid value. Dan fixed some stuff here with shaders, and a lot of these things are behind the scenes. You probably don't even know that these things are happening, but he fixes them. Memory corruption with face effects. I got credit for this, but actually Scott fixed it. So shout out to Scott. The dialogue, just simply, it wasn't working. If you tried to do a print of the wiring view, you wouldn't get a prompt that says, send it to the printer. So he corrected that. Fixed renderings of submodels, again, behind the scenes plumbing from Dan. He's been working like a crazy man trying to fix all these things. Fix sparkles with GPU rendering. So I mentioned before, he's doing a lot of work on putting GPU rendering on the Mac side. So as he puts it on there, he's finding some issues and going back and correcting that. So that's great. I put a simple fix in here. We found that when you went to File, Preferences, and the new feature here for where is it here? This one here. If you clicked on hardware video decoding, you actually had to exit the preference screen to get to this drop down. So now you don't have to do that. So it makes sense there. Just a little clarification here. This is just for decoding. It's not going to do for encoding. It's just decoding. So it's taking video, and when it's processing the video effect, it's going to use this FFmpeg option to it. I just don't want people to read more into it than is really there. It's not a full Windows GPU configuration such, so it's not going to impact there. Okay, so Gil fixed some DMX issues with the model. I think it was a case of red, green, blue wasn't working on each moving head. So somebody noticed that. Somebody noticed that the emoji icon would not be centered. So that was a feature. If I have a sequence here, go to sequence. I don't know if I can quickly show this or not, but shape effect, put it down here, expand it out, click on this guy, effects, settings, let's pull this out a bit, and we could go emoji, there we go, click on this guy, and actually I think we want to put this on the matrix side of it, make more sense. Matrix there, so you can see the emoji. It wouldn't be random initial, wouldn't be random locations. So there it is there. And you got the 0 point and you got the 100 point, and you couldn't, it wasn't working properly. It was basically hard coded, assuming you only had a 50 pixel high. And of course, if you put it on 100 pixels, it would be only able to go half as high. So that was corrected. Alex B put in a bunch of stuff with issues when you were on your layout, and if you did a Control C, Control V, and when it went to add it into the groups that it was into, it would create duplicate groups. So if you were in a group, I'll pick this one, you would find that it would duplicate things in here. So that was corrected. All right. There was brought up by an issue. We don't know how it was being triggered, but it was cleaned up. It caused invalid RGB effects file for some folks. Something happened when he was switching between base and show folders, and it created an invalid thing there. So if you didn't come across that, no big deal. This was an issue with the Z order being backwards. So if you had a tree model, and I'm not sure if I could demo this or not. Let's see if I can. Let's create a new model, tree model, drag it out here. And size location. Let's see if we can go 5, 5, 5. And I'm just going to show you what it did do. I know there's just a couple of people were using this for a special use case. Where did he go? There he is, way up high. Oh well, come on. He does not want to move for me. Why not? There you go. I broke it already. Let's go down 2D. Wow, did I find a bug already? Tree, 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 tree. Where are you? Tree. Anyway, let me see if I can get in here. He's like way back here. That's what's going on. Anyway, click reset. What I was trying to get to is when you exported this video, notice mine's I think it's a 270 or something. When you exported this model and you brought it back in, it would have been reversed. It would have thought the tree model is this way. So for some folk, so you export it as a custom model, and then when you re-imported it, it would come back and be flipped around. So for the person that was doing this, he was doing a column. So he had a column that was curled this way up on his house, but when he brought it back in, it was reversed. So it's a simple case. Again, you probably didn't run into it, but anyway, it's been addressed. Let's go back here. Again, some behind the scenes stuff. Disable canvas effects shouldn't render on a blend. Disabling models from rendering. Oh, again, we've seen this before. You have the option here to say model disable render. No, yeah, right here. row model. Disable render. So you'd expect it not to render anything on the model, but what was happening was if you had something on the strand level or on the node level, they were still being rendered. So there you go. Dan doing some performance tuning here. This may have brought in a new issue, a small issue. We had somebody that had like literally had my music, quote, this song, quote, .mp3. Um, the old version would handle this with these quotes. The new version doesn't seem to handle it, so we're going to have to look at that. There's an issue outstanding for that. So be aware of that. If you have these double quotes in your file name, that might be giving you an issue where it says file not found. Adding some things to model blending. So if you didn't know about canvas mode, it's an advanced technique here, but this is canvas mode. And with canvas mode, you can tell it insert multiple layers below 3. And I think if I go click on this, click on canvas mode, you can click on here and you can choose which layers you want to blend. That's an advanced technique, but Dan has added some layers here that were not being included, so he's fixed that. Um, Alex has added a bunch of stuff that is going to help people when they're making duplicates of props that have lots of submodels and in groups. So before you used to have to export them and then re-import them back to get the group dialogues. Now you should be able to just Control C, Control V, or you can do it under Edit. So you're going to do copy and then paste, and you can get all of the layers. And we've added the ability to right click and add aliases here to submodels rather than having to go through all of the dialogues before you had to actually come to the model, go down to the submodels, submodels, click on that, and then you would say, click on this submodel and say action, add an alias. Well, now you don't have to go all the way through there. You can just right click on that little box. Aliases are still a work in progress, by the way, in terms of submodels. Right now, we've only got the feature to add the aliases. They're not really being used yet. That's coming up shortly in the import effects dialog where you can actually map to it. So just be aware of that. We're just setting the groundwork for that sort of thing. And let me go out of this, cancel, close, yes. Alex has added the submodel aliases to the info thing. So you should see it down here if there are aliases. Let me just, I think I should be able to try this. So add star, click OK, and click OK, and go up and back down. There it is. Submodel aliases. So what this is going to mean in the long term is if you bought a sequence that has something modeled on a star and you click auto map, it's going to say, oh, treat this as a star, and it's automatically going to pull that effect and map it for you over to your star big. So it's just a quick way to add mapping effects when you're doing an import from a vendor. So stay tuned for that. Stuff's still coming for that. Dan has made sure that the check sequence is checking against the submodels and such. There was an issue where it was actually checking against the actual model and not the submodel, so that's been corrected. And Scott corrected the FMPEG, meaning the back in the file preferences where you choose which one you wanted to do for hardware encoding. There was issues where it wasn't actually working for the Vulkan and I think it's the X11 dropdown. So file preferences, cancel, get done. I don't want that file. Preferences, other. So I believe he's told me, if I understood him correctly, that DirectX 11 wasn't working, Vulkan wasn't working, AMF wasn't working. That's been corrected with that version. And for those things, by the way, try it on each one. Maybe create a sequence with a couple of video effects and see if it helps you out. If you've got something that some sequence with a lot of video in it, give that a shot and see if it works out for you. Here's the big one, moving head effects. Let me just skip over that for a second. We'll end the video with all that stuff because that's a biggie. Add layout group to import export for a custom model. So what we're doing there, if I recall, is when you export a prop, it's going to also include what preview it's in or what groups it's in. Let me just make sure. Add layout group to import export. I thought it had something to do with the preview, but why would he say layout group? I'm not positive on that one, guys. I thought it had something to do with the preview, so that if you had it in a hidden group or in your snowflakes group, it would also put it back in your snowflakes group, for example. Pretty sure that's what that was meant. I think maybe the README is wrong. Remove start channels from groups and submodels in the model list. Oh, okay. This was just cleaning up things that didn't make sense. So if you had a group of everything, and I scroll over to the right, you have the start channels and everything there. But for submodels and such, it used to have numbers here that made no sense because you didn't know, like a group wouldn't have any start channels there. So it didn't make sense to have them listed. Let's see if I can find another example. I haven't got a lot of submodel groups, so I don't really know. Oh, this one probably is. Yeah, so these are submodels, right? So it didn't make sense to list start channels and end channels for those types uh, of elements in your group. So those were cleaned up and removed to avoid confusion. This one is causing a little bit of grief, and I apologize. Um, when you import a sequence, import effects, let me pick something here. Hopefully that works. These colors, apparently not working very well for some people. The default blue or dark blue, black, and like if I bring one of these over, that's, you notice the gray, it's like you cannot see it on my screen. I don't know about you, but can't see it. Anyway, so there was two choices and it was essentially hard coded. We got rid of the hard coding. So feel free to go in here and fix it to your choice. And even if you like the existing one, I encourage you to go in and actually set it for yourself. Under file preferences, maybe you didn't even know this existed, but you can override all of the color choices um, for a bunch of items here. Not everything is open for you, but here are the last two settings. So there's the blue for groups, and here is the gray that's when you've selected it. So feel free to come in here and choose these two colors that work well for you, whether it's dark mode, whether it's Mac, whether it's a PC. But now you can choose those colors yourself. I know that's causing some people some grief because the defaults that it tried to figure out weren't correct. So that's what the issue is there. So that's been reported and addressed. Dan has added some more GPU rendering for on the Mac side for layer blending. And the whole goal there, I think, is to find the code and that you can put specifically on the GPU. So he has to figure out what pieces of xLights can go on a GPU, and that means you can run it in parallel significantly faster than running it serially on your CPU. So if you've got think of a loop counting from 1 to 100. If you have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to take you 100 iterations. But if you can throw that on a GPU, you can say do all 100 at the same time. So you get significant improvement in timing. So slowly making changes for that. The last thing here that we want to address is the moving head changes. So even if you've done nothing to this point in using the new effect, you still need to look at your moving head models because that is something that will change even if you don't use the new effect. The new effect is right here. So even if you're not using the new effect, so perhaps you're using sequencers that purchase from various vendors and then they use the old effect, they'll still work. The thing is you will have your moving heads will be converted to what is the moving head advanced DMX moving head advance. So you will automatically see this now. You'll see this little icon. So that's the new moving head advance. And there's a couple of things here that were done in this release and fixed in the next release. That you may want to correct yourself right now. So here's just a couple that I know off the top is the fixture. So moving head 1, I believe they're all being brought in as moving head 1. So ideally you want to change each of those to moving head 1. Next one would be moving head 2. Now there's 8 fixtures. So I only have 6 moving heads. So you know what? My moving head 1, I might say that's going to be 2. Maybe I'll make this a 3. And I'm going to choose, I'm not going to bore you with all of them, but I'm going to make them the middle 6 out of the 8 possible. So if a vendor has 8 moving heads, you could choose 2 through 7. If I got the math right. So you feel free to update that. Another thing that was changed, I believe it is under pan motor. So range of motion, and I thought, oh, okay, I think it's fixed in the next release. No, I thought it was here. There's some place here where you have to say negative or reverse or something. I think it's this one here. I thought this was supposed to be, okay, if you run into it, please help me out here. I think you had to put 540 and then you say reverse. I think that's what's going on. This little change was not caught in the .9, and it's going to be fixed in 9.1, or in the next release, I should say, over the nightly. So range of motion should be a positive number, but then you just say run it in reverse. So that is, if your moving head says, and hopefully I got it right, it spins this way. You would, and in as opposed to this way. This might be negative 540, and this was just 540, whichever one it was. If you had negative 540, if you had this guy, you're going to now put in 540 here and reverse. So if you have a negative in there, just take out the negative sign and put in reverse. Everything else should be the same. Looks like we have the same thing for tilt. If you have range of motion that's a negative number, you would put it to a positive number and set the reverse. And there was, just double check if you're not seeing the images here, double check that you were able to get to the objects files. So click on here. Now I've got a bunch of test versions here, so things may have broken on my side that shouldn't be broken on yours, but you can verify and grab the mesh object files for, I think what you want is, I think you just want the yoke and the head. The base doesn't need to be brought in. So you're going to have the head and the yoke. And the yoke, unfortunately, is called the base, but it was the moving head itself, and then there's this piece here, which we're calling the yoke, based on the old icon that was used. But there's also a base element as well that you didn't have to include. So that's up to you if you want to include that base element. Those are those things. Other than that, everything else should be the same with purchase to effects with the moving heads and the mapping. You shouldn't have to worry about that. Just make sure that your moving heads are configured properly and you can go forwards and backwards. Yeah, I think that's it for .9. And yeah, we'll wrap up this video. Keep your eyes open. There's still more stuff. I'm looking at fixes over here on my other screen. I'm just going to quickly go through them. There's some compiler warnings that you don't worry about. Yeah, negative. Do we address that? And yeah. Oh, there's going to be an option here. Some people want to know how to hide the moving heads. So coming up in the next release is you're going to use the brightness here. So if you want to hide your moving head, you would change that to a 0 and it would hide it. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up if you want to hide your moving heads and you just want to see the beam instead of the actual 3D object. So that's it. I will wrap it up there. Thank you guys, and see you in the Zoom room. Bye.